tomorrow's going to be here too. And tomorrow's also going to be great.
Yeah.
And there's going to be something there that isn't here today. So I don't need to like hold on to this so tight because tomorrow's going to also be a thing.
Welcome to the Paul Plett podcast. This is basically an excuse for me to sit down and have a conversation with people that I find interesting. And joining me today is Kenton Dyck. Kenton is an actor, a comedian, a radio host, a husband, and a dog owner.
Yeah, those are some of the things.
Welcome here, Kenton.
Thank you.
So for people who don't know you and don't know sort of what you do, how do you explain who you are and what do you do?
Oh, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, all of the things you said. But those kind of things shift based on what I'm doing, right?
Okay.
Right? So, like, I'm an actor, definitely.
Yeah. Yes.
Not acting full-time at the moment. Still acting and doing other things. I'm a comedian, like you said, but more like, not so much stand-up, so much as, sketch comedy and improv.
Situational humor in the real world.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it just kind of depends on what you, like, how are you meeting me? You know, like for work as a radio host, then that's how I would introduce myself most of the time. And I'm also a journalist, so then I talk about that, like.
Yes.
I work with Steinbach online, so then half the time I'm introducing myself, it's to people that I'm about to interview. Okay. Most of the time I'm introducing myself, it's that way. So then I'm explaining where I'm at on that front.
Yeah. Steinbach online. Steinbach is a town, city in Manitoba.
City. It's hilarious because it's the third largest city in Manitoba with just under 20,000
Manitoba is a province in Canada.
But it's like Winnipeg at like 750 and then Brandon at like 50. Third largest Steinbach at under 20.
Yeah, okay.
Just under 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's third largest city in Manitoba, but that's kind of a joke.
And that's where you live, that's where you work?
Yeah, that's where I live, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that where you're from? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Portage La Prairie.
Okay.
But I lived there for like 2 months.
Portage La Prairie, another town outside of Winnipeg.
Yeah, rural Manitoba. I've done the tour of southern Manitoba.
Okay.
Because I was born in Portage, which is west of Winnipeg, and then I moved very shortly thereafter, very briefly to Niverville, that's unimportant. Then I moved to Rhineland, which is south of Winkler.
Okay.
Not too far. It's very close to the border, to the American border.
Okay.
But it's a little quaint village south of Winkler with like a whole bunch of house barns.
Okay.
And then I lived there for all of my elementary school years.
Okay.
Then a quick detour to Belize, Blue Creek, Belize.
Belize.
Yep. Just south of Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula.
How old were you when you moved to Belize?
I was 10. Okay. I was just going into grade 5.
Okay.
So then I was like grade 5, 6, 7, and 8, which would normally be kind of middle school.
Yeah.
Or junior high or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Yeah.
And I turned 14 right before I moved back.
So like super formative years.
Very.
In Belize.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think a lot of people think about it this way because like you normally, people live in, a lot of my friends have lived kind of in the same place for most of their life.
Yeah.
So when I tell people that like I thought of myself as more Belizean than Canadian when I moved back, that sounds crazy because it's 4 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm 30, 4 years ago, I was 26. I lived in the same house and I was doing the same job.
Yeah.
Had most of the same friends. Not much has changed in that 4 years. But from 10 to 14, like how much do you remember? I mean, I think you have a similar experience, right?
Yeah.
But like how much do you remember before you were 10? Like when I think about my before 10 memories, I'm like, I kind of lump them all in one place because I don't really know where things were. Like, I assume most of my memories before 10 were between 5 and 10.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I have memories before 5, but they're minimal.
Yeah.
But then the memories you have between 10 and 14, you got a lot of them. Yeah. And so, you're a very different person from 10 to 14, as you especially know if you have kids, So yeah, when I left Belize.
What were you doing in Belize? Why'd you move?
My dad's a pastor.
Okay.
Not a missionary.
Okay.
A pastor.
Okay.
It's a real semantic thing, but it does make a bit of a difference.
Big difference, yeah.
Like missionaries are sent by their home church and funded through like donations back home, and then sent to a place. And my dad just got a job in a church
Okay.
in Blue Creek, in the same conference that he's been a preacher all of my life.
Okay. Yeah, no,
So-
I always make that distinction because my folks worked for a not-for-profit,
Right.
a relief and development organization, and I always make the distinction that, like, I mean, I grew up in Zambia and Sudan and Manitoba, back and forth, but my parents were not missionaries. They were not spreading the gospel. They were there to work with small-scale farmers.
Yeah.
It's a totally different experience, and it's also a different experience. I feel like, for myself, I never felt pressure to be Christian, to join the
Right.
church, to proselytize, etc.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that kind of walked that path and did that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That just wasn't my experience with the church.
I would say the same thing. I mean, the pressure to join the church the same way that any other Christian kid would.
Yeah.
Your parents value their faith heavily.
Yeah.
So obviously it's important to them, and it's important that you are a part of that.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't the same thing. Plus, I lived in a very Christian community.
Okay.
It wasn't like a lot of in Belize.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a colony, a Mennonite colony.
Mennonite colony.
Officially,
in Belize.
yeah. But it wasn't old colony. It was
Okay.
an important distinction. We lived very close
New
to... Yeah, exactly. It would have been old colony not many years ago.
Yeah.
That's how it would have started. It would have started with mostly people from Manitoba, actually.
Bunch of Manitobans in Belize.
Right. I don't know if you... I mean, I think you know a lot of the Mennonite history. But,
Yeah.
in the early...
Mennonites trace their roots back to Menno Simon.
That's right. Exactly. But like my great grandma, for example, she moved from the Morden area to Mexico with one of the
small town in Manitoba.
again connections to all of them.
This is just like, is this for insiders or not?
Exactly. I'm sorry. I need to be a little more open. So my great grandmother moved from Morden, Manitoba, to Mexico. With one of the many big waves that moved south.
There's a big culture of Mennonites who moved from sort of Ukraine-Russia area, moved to Canada. A lot of those Mennonites in sort of the early 1900s, there was an issue around schools, sending Mennonite kids to public schools. A lot of Mennonites ended up moving down south to Latin America. My wife, her whole family, they came back from Mexico.
Okay.
They're all from
the Mexico.
Yeah, they're all from Mexico. So it was the first one that was born in Canada. Again.
Okay. She's from, okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah. You move at 10.
Yeah.
And how did you, over those 4 years, yes, you're growing, you're maturing, etc. But what are the seeds that were planted that then brought you back feeling Belizean? Or Belizean?
Yeah, Belizean.
Belizean. Or Belizean Mennonite.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the colony is fairly secluded, this one specifically is kind of tucked up in the corner.
Yeah.
Just geographically secluded. It's very connected to the world in that it has internet and everybody has TV and all of those things.
Yeah.
Although it was pretty primitive internet at the time. Early 2000s, it was primitive everywhere, but even more so when you're dealing with satellite internet. But we're all very well connected, but just physically secluded. Yeah, so all of my friends, a very common mode of transportation was dirt bikes and racing quads. Oh, cool. So I'd have friends that would come to school, three kids between ages 5 and 13, all on a racing quad. Yeah. Or driving their truck, pickup. Yeah. With all three of them, maybe a few kids in the back. Yeah. And they're all coming to school that way. They don't get delivered to school. Yeah. They drive their vehicle to school with their siblings in middle school. Yeah.
It's almost like you're growing up in the early 2000s. Yeah. But with the rules that our parents grew up with.
Absolutely. And so I kind of get some of the things when old people complain, even though whatever, I try not to be that guy. But old people when I was a kid, we didn't have those safety rules, and I'm yeah, me neither.
Back in Belize.
I drove.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that. It was the community is small enough that my parents know all of my friends' parents. Yeah. They are all part of our church. They are all part of our school. In summer, those are the only people I hang out with. So
tight-knit community.
Yeah, which obviously has its downsides, as any tight-knit community will know. But as a kid, a lot of those downsides don't really come to the foreground.
Keep it positive. This is a Paul Plett podcast.
Yeah.
Positive environment.
most of those negative things that come from a small knit community you don't really notice as a kid.
Yeah.
Which is great. What it means is that like, I'm going to go to a friend's place. My parents are like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Be back at this time.
Yeah.
So I just leave.
Yeah.
And then from there, we want to go swimming down by the river. We just go.
And quite a safe environment.
Yeah, and that's like miles away, down a few hills, through a thing, and now we're going to go swim at a dam that we like to go to. And we just do that by ourselves, no supervision.
Adventures.
And it doesn't really matter because we all know, everybody knows everybody.
That's wild. I remember, like,
it's really fun.
The friend group that I developed in Sudan, I was in sort of grade 8, grade 9. I remember, like, we would take trips we would, like, go swim in the Nile. And it would just be us. Like, me and, like, 5 friends. We would go, like, through the whole city, and like we would do like various different adventures. I feel like it's the environment, the city, but then also like the people that you know. I feel like it was people that we knew sort of through church, youth group.
Right.
There's sort of like, my parents, I guess, trusted these people enough that but it is a cool time when you are experiencing a level of freedom and can start going on those adventures you would have dreamed of a few years earlier, or read about, or seen in like a movie or something.
Oh, that level of freedom at that age I just find really wild. Like I know my friends here in Canada had many awesome experiences that in some ways are comparable, but it was really just that level of like the river has crocodiles in it. Crocodiles in Belize really aren't that scary, and by that I mean like when you hear about crocodile attacks in like or alligators in Florida or Australia, they're a far more aggressive species than we have in Belize. Like I don't know of anybody outside of attempting to catch a crocodile that's ever gotten bit by a crocodile. Like never. Swimming at night, swimming in the daytime, doesn't matter, go for it. And they're there. Like if you go boating down the river with a spotlight, you can find them easily at night, which I've done that before as well. But like Blue Creek is an escarpment of hills, so I lived on this hill. My friend lived on this hill. To get there, I would walk down my driveway and then up a trail through the jungle to get to his house.
That's cool.
Like in that valley, there would be spider monkeys, and you could watch them swing through the trees, or howler monkeys, which are frightening when you don't know what they are. At night, it's really scary. They sound really scary, and then it becomes like anything else, right? Like everything becomes normal. So, howler monkeys that are off in the valley right next, which sound like a roaring lion right next to the house. It becomes like a dryer, But just like.
So you move to Belize. You have to walk down a hill and hear howler monkeys for the first time, and eventually it sounds like a dryer.
It's.
And you move back to Canada, 14 years old, and now you've been imprinted. With the Belizean experience and feeling like that was your group, those were your people, that's your identity, that's who you are. What was it like moving back?
I would say like overall, like it was really hard at first, but I'm a pretty charismatic person. Which helps because like anytime you're moving a community, it's easier to make friends, right? So I didn't have that hard a time like making a new group of friends or anything like that.
Moved to Steinbach.
I moved to Steinbach. I spent a little bit of time, in Portage with my grandparents while we were solidifying my dad was solidifying his job, and then we moved to Steinbach, which is south of Steinbach, or just west, I guess. A small community nearby. In the area. It was interesting, again, one of the things, and I keep bringing up the whole driving thing, which sounds weird, but like...
You love driving.
Well, it's not that I didn't, I do. I actually still do. I like, motorized vehicles and power sports and whatnot.
Of course.
But it was a freedom. That was a loss of freedom. And it wasn't just a loss of freedom because I couldn't just go anywhere with anybody, because we lived in a fairly small community when we moved back, so that wasn't too big an issue. I was still allowed to bike to my friends and whatnot, but it wasn't that sense of adventure. And then in addition to that, it was like, I'd gotten so used to being like, I want to go somewhere, I jump in a vehicle and I go somewhere. But now I'm back at 14, still a year and a half away from getting a learner's, 2 years away from getting a license. And it was like, you kind of felt a little bit like, come on, I already know how to do this. Like it was that little bit of like, lots of freedom.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like a lack of freedom.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I could just go anywhere by myself anymore.
Yeah. I mean, when someone has not had international experience, your world is, by definition, smaller.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Toronto seems like a far-off place.
Yeah.
You know? I remember that feeling, because we had a kid we moved to Landmark, another small town in Manitoba. This kid came from Toronto. And we were like, that's like for the big city, from so far away. And then later on in my life, I lived in Toronto, went to school in Toronto.
Yeah.
But there's this feeling that like the world is so small. And that was sort of hard for me because I like to dream and I like to vision. I mean, love watching movies and pretending and stuff, and we could always do that. But then the thought that like, oh, we could turn this into a reality. We could really do it.
Yeah.
We don't have to...
It's available to us.
Yeah.
I think a couple of the other things, so there was a little bit of that, certainly, and then the thing that, my friends tease me, to this day they tease me, although it's not as much a thing anymore, but it's hard not to, and I remember this even when we were in Belize. I remember new people from Canada coming to Belize, living in the community. There's a lot of connections to southern Manitoba.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, oh man, like all you talk about is Canada.
Yeah.
And then I moved back up here, and then it was like my friends being like, oh man, you bring up Belize so often.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, those are all of my experiences. Like, I get that, I understand. So you kind of like have to try to keep an eye on it, like to be like,
I never did that.
No? Oh, that was a huge thing for me. And it was not because it's not just because it was all of my experiences. It's also just like, so all my cool stories, you know? Like anything I have to bring up that's like interesting or different, and like all the things I think are cool, you know? It's like all that stuff is like, that's all there, you know?
Totally.
So people would be like, oh man, I can't see spiders. And I'm like, I mean, I used to play with tarantulas, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, I remember waking up the second night I lived in Belize with a spider like that on my face and being really scared.
Yeah.
But that's a part of life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like the things that come up. So there's that for sure. You didn't do that?
My sister did.
Okay.
My sister was someone who lived her experiences in how she dressed, how she acted, etc. I just wanted to fit in, assimilate. I was like, nobody cares.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it. We're going to get into.
So kind to your friends and not necessarily to yourself.
It wasn't even that. It was just. It's just my personality.
Sure.
You know, I just don't. I've started to do that more recently now.
Do you think
it's a confidence thing?
A confidence, okay.
For me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to claim that on my own terms.
Yeah, and I was wondering if it's maybe like a not therapy thing, but like if it's like
catharsis?
Well, yeah, like maybe as a kid, you know, you're trying too hard to be somebody that you're to just fit in, and maybe, you know, is there like a level of like opening up that allows you to talk about your experiences?
I mean, as an adult now, yeah. I think as a child, I think it was more about how do I, you know, because again, those years, sort of grade, I mean, for me, you know, kind of grade 6, middle school, just sort of wanting to sort of fit in, be popular, navigating the social environment. That just became so sort of important to me.
See, that's interesting because that was always very important to me as well.
Yeah.
But I did it differently in that I tried to I would have used my stories and experience as like isn't this cool?
Yeah.
Haven't I done cool things?
Yeah.
You know? It's a similar end goal, but a different tact.
Yeah. So, 14, you moved back.
Yeah.
When did you, at what point, I mean, you self-identify as an actor. When did that kind of happen? Was that already happening in Belize? Did that sort of turn over when you moved back, going to high school in Manitoba?
This is a very good question. So I always liked acting, and I remember living in Blue Creek, living in Belize, and doing like a couple of church plays. That had been the only opportunity.
Yeah.
I remember watching like movies and behind the scenes movies and being like, oh, that looks like fun. Like that's what I wanted. That looks like fun. And I remember even like leaving Belize and coming back to Canada thinking like, oh, that's going to be maybe that'd be an opportunity. something I can get into. And I remember thinking like that would be a cool thing. That being said, I mean, that was like alongside a few other dreams.
Sure.
As a kid, I really wanted to be a pilot. That kind of faded, although I still have an interest in planes and that aviation. Then, and I thought it was interesting because I was just in your washroom and I saw a whole bunch of Calvin and Hobbes. That's a big part of my childhood and influenced my comedy and whatnot. And I wanted to be like a cartoon artist for a while as well, partly because I loved Calvin and Hobbes so much, and that was such an inspiration.
Calvin and Hobbes is great.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's
so good.
Yeah, for me.
And it's so cool because I remember being like 5 to 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in like chiropractor office reading Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
And it was mesmerizing because you're seeing Spaceman Spiff and the dinosaurs and all these things, and none of the comedy gets you. It just looks great.
Yeah.
And then I'm like 14, reading like as much of it as I could, thinking this is so much funnier than I remember it being. And it's so clever. And then I'm an adult rereading it all going, oh my God, there's another level here. Oh, it's so good.
Calvin and Hobbes is it's like Calvin and Hobbes is like The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
You know, which I loved as a kid, loved watching. It was just sort of fantasy fun. And as you get older, you're like, oh, there's a lot going on here. And then now knowing about like film and cinema, I'm like, this is a really good movie.
Yeah.
This is really good storytelling. You know,
and interesting storytelling that also kind of, it has a level, Princess Bride in particular has a level of childishness to it. Like it's such a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But then there's so much more.
Yeah.
I love it. So anyways, I kind of wanted to do that, but also acting. So then it was like all of the above. And I remember when I was in Belize.
All of the above meaning pilot, actor, cartoonist.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, all of those things kind of, they're interests.
No, yeah, for sure. But those are sort of the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I realized by the time I was 14 that cartoonist wouldn't really be the thing. I can draw okay, but it's not like my thing. And I don't really love just sitting and drawing for long periods of time. So it was like, acting was like a similar thing.
Blow your mind.
Okay.
If and when you have kids.
Okay.
And they start drawing cartoons.
Yeah.
Right?
I bet.
And you show them Calvin and Hobbes?
I bet.
We have those Calvin and Hobbes here.
Yeah.
And my kids, like, they're at that point where they're looking at it just as a picture book. So they're sort of looking at it a little bit. It's kind of drawing them a bit. Because again, they're cool books. But in a few years, as their reading starts to pick up, like when they can like basically read it, they still don't really understand joke structure.
Which is hilarious.
Can
I tell you one of my nephew's funny favorite jokes?
Tell me.
My favorite joke of my nephew's, this is when he was maybe 4.
Yeah.
Was on the phone with my sister, and he says, knock, knock. My sister says, who's there? And he says, Luigi. She says, Luigi who? And he's like, Luigi from Luigi's Mansion. Who's Luigi? What? It's Luigi. That's who's there.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just write down now when I have 2 girls.
Yeah.
And when they say stuff to each other, sometimes I write it down and I put it on the wall. One was
I bet.
Rosie was like, the older one was like, every time I talk to Elise, she says potato. And then Elise just said potato. Not a joke, but it's hilarious.
No, it's good.
So good.
The timing is there. And they don't even know it necessarily.
They don't even know it.
Oh, man, I love that.
So, okay, so you kind of self-identify in those ways. You love the arts. You want to be a pilot. Why did you decide to pursue journalism? Or what did you decide to pursue? Like, at what point? So you've got those bugs.
Yeah.
You finish high school. You have those bugs in. You finish high school in Manitoba.
Yeah, my high school was great for that.
Okay. So you went to a high school. In Steinbach, this sort of city in Manitoba.
Yeah, which was shocking. This is jumping back in the conversation a little bit, but going from like people think of Steinbach as being fairly sheltered Christian community.
Yeah.
When you're coming from a place
it's a big Mennonite town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're coming from a place like Blue Creek, it was that was one thing I didn't mention. Absolutely shocking to move even to an even smaller community than Steinbach. For 1 year, I did school in a smaller community.
Sure.
Before I went to the high school, before I was eligible. Like,
So moving from a colony in Belize.
oh my God, yeah.
To Steinbach to a
yeah.
Mennonite. So a Mennonite colony in Belize to a Mennonite city.
Yeah.
In Manitoba.
Oh yeah, like the it's funny to look back at it, but like the swearing and the things people would talk about was like, oh my God, what are you talking? Like,
I mean,
I learned a lot very quickly.
Yeah. For me, when we moved back, it was like Simpsons was big.
Okay.
So like it was like, whoa, yeah, okay, let's do this. Because when we lived in Zambia, we had like one VHS.
Yeah.
Which had like the 1993. You know when the Habs, when the Montreal Canadiens won Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it was like 93. I think 93 was last year. Yeah.
And we had one Simpsons episode.
Okay.
You know the B Sharps episode?
I don't.
Homer joins a barbershop quartet.
Okay.
I've seen that episode so many times. Anyway, to move to like now, you're like it's on TV.
Yeah.
Everything's on TV.
Yeah, and you can just turn it on and find anything you want.
Yeah.
Like, wow. No, so it was shocking. It was that was a big thing, and it was very much like okay, all right. So a lot of things hitting at once, but still somewhat sheltered. Still, sheltered would be a good way of putting it. But then you're starting to see like, oh, like you get everything now, and you have to learn how to be an adult in that, or a human being in that.
What do you think the role that? I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going back. But
I know.
When you lived in Belize, sheltered, what role do you think that played in the development of your imagination?
Oh.
Because when I think about like being here now, my kids, Netflix, Disney, everything to watch at their fingertips. They don't like watch, like I would watch one thing, go out in the yard, play, reenact. I got big on like Asterix and Obelix and Tintin. Yeah. And I would live those adventures, right?
Yeah. No, I was a big, I think that has influenced acting and certainly it's influenced acting.
Yeah.
I would even go further back though, because Belize, yes, but when I lived in Rhineland in elementary school, we didn't have TV of any kind.
Okay.
We didn't have a TV in our house. Yeah. We didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So like, that's what I grew up with, and then I would it was like Lego, toys, run around the yard. A lot of time running around the yard, climbing trees, and living in my imagination, and pretending.
Yeah.
Then in Belize, we also didn't have a TV, but we had a computer. We could watch movies.
Sure.
Internet.
2000s.
Friends all had TVs, and then also video games. But even then, like we would play video games together, and we would go through stints where it'd be like, we spend most of our time inside playing PlayStation.
What video games?
The ones that really stand out in my mind are Sly Cooper, PlayStation, Ratchet and Clank.
Okay.
Huge.
Okay.
A lot. Oh my God, did we play 007 Nightfire?
Wow.
Which was a follow-up to GoldenEye.
Yeah, okay.
Very similar. We played so much of that and multiplayer.
These are all games I don't know. I didn't ever have a PlayStation.
Oh, no? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Jak and Daxter,
Nintendo.
we played some. Oh, okay, yeah. No, we never did. My friends had just gotten into PlayStation. PlayStation 2 was fairly new at that point in time, and everybody had them. Yeah. So that was like my thing. And so then it was like, Need for Speed and some other things. But yeah. Nintendo had 007.
Yeah,
GoldenEye.
Yeah. And Perfect Dark came out for N64 after.
Okay, yeah. So anyways, we played a lot of that, a lot of those things. Yeah, a lot of that. That was super fun. But so we'd spend time inside, but then we would also spend tons of time outside, and we would go through phases of stuff, right? Where it'd be like, we're swimming a lot, or we're getting into paintball. And so then we'd be playing paintball.
So Belize is just like summer vacation all the time.
Kinda, yeah. Like I remember paintballing. This is one of those weird experiences that you kind of have to I forget about how cool it was or how different it was.
Yeah.
But I had friends here that paintballed a lot in the bush, when they were kids. But we played Capture the Flag, and our two bases were unexcavated Mayan ruins in the jungle. They were pyramids that were not huge. They were maybe 20 feet tall. That's so cool. Just you could tell that they were. You didn't know what they were.
That is so cool and it's so disrespectful at the same time.
Well, but the thing about Belize that you don't understand if you don't live there, there are ruins everywhere.
Yeah.
The country has 400,000 people. At the height of the Mayan Empire, there was well over 1 million people that lived in Belize. like there were significantly more people living in Belize at the height of the Mayan Empire than there are today. Like, we would be riding horse through my friend's
So
fields.
it would be hard to play capture the flag and not.
Yeah, like we would be going over what were obviously Mayan houses, riding horse in the pasture, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Like, you will find pottery everywhere. If you dig a hole, you will most likely, unless it's on a, depends. But like, if you're, if you're in an area, it's absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
So like, you hear sometimes about, and people try to, like, there are rules about like not like destroying ruins and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like, you hear about, sometimes you hear stories that like, oh my God, they built a road over Mayan ruins. Yeah.
Well, they have the same issue in like Rome.
Yeah.
Like, they can't.
Right.
The warehouses of the museums are so filled with artifacts.
Yeah.
They don't want to dig anymore. They don't want to like build like more subway, because they're going to run into something and then they'll have to excavate again.
Totally. And it's the same kind of issue. And you kind of find balances. Like, all of the major sites, those have mostly been excavated, like and redone. Like they've had archaeologists in.
Yeah.
They're touched up and they're beautiful and they're awesome tourist attractions and they're impressive. But like, there were people living everywhere, and so there's ruins everywhere. And like, everybody I knew had pieces of pots, Mayan pots. I had a friend who had a pot, I kid you not, this big, this tall. And they stored all of their sports equipment in there. It was a full Mayan pot that their dad found while doing some tree clearing.
Yeah. Okay.
Is what it is. So that's not where I'm getting at.
Back on track then.
Back on track. I know we're going way to the future now.
You went to a school?
Yeah. Good theater program.
Yeah. Okay.
Good theater program at the SRSS.
Steinbach.
Yes, and very influential. My teacher there was a woman by the name of Julianne Hoyak.
Okay.
Wonderful teacher. And so I did I think 4 semesters of drama. I did because I was only there for 3 years, but then I did grade 10 drama in grade 10, and then grade 11 and 12 in grade 11, and then in grade 12 I was like, I'm going to redo grade 11 for fun. So I took grade 11 drama again because I wanted to.
Yeah, okay.
And was part of the improv team there, which we were part of 2 different leagues.
Yeah.
So that was really important. That's where I met a good chunk of the friends I still have.
Is that when you were sort of introduced to improv?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and
what was that like? I mean, that's a big part of your identity too. Like, what was that experience like when you were first saw improv versus like, what was it like when you first did improv?
Oh man, that's a good question. Like, I wanted to act, so I didn't. At first, when I heard about improv, it was like, that doesn't sound. I want to act.
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
Okay,
but then it was like, but that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
I liked the people that were part of it.
Yeah,
seemed like it seemed wild. And like a team.
Yeah.
It's super fun. In many ways, it's like a sports team.
Yeah.
So you get lots of the things that you get from sports teams, which is awesome because you get lots of that collaboration. Like, you learn, in sports, you learn a lot about like teamwork. And actually, in many ways, I think about improv like sports. I coached it for many years afterward as well. But people talk about like, why do you practice improv? It's improvised. But it's like sports. Like,
that's a muscle for sure.
It's like sports in that like you practice soccer.
Yeah.
But when you actually go play, you have to go with the flow. You're not you can't practice for what the other team's going to do. You're not setting plays to the point where it's like, and this is exactly how the game is going to go.
Yeah.
You're not rehorsing a play, but you're practicing it. So you know each other really well, and you know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. What was it like when I first did it? It was exciting and dangerous. Because
cool.
You don't know what's gonna.
Yeah.
You know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I also like saw improv.
Yeah.
And I had the same feeling. Like, I liked what I saw.
Yeah.
It seemed like cool people.
Yeah.
And I tried it.
And
I'm not good at it.
Yeah. But that's fine. Like,
no, but it's different. Like,
yeah.
It's fine if the group still accepts you.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's totally fair.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like
that's great.
Like, it's fine if you can't play basketball.
Yeah, I know.
if the people that are playing are still going to invite you to play, are going to like pass you the ball or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, there's also some people who you're just like, we're just going to keep playing basketball because that's what we're doing. And like, that guy likes watching us play basketball. Let's let that person watch us play basketball, you know? So that was...
No, it was, like, I mean, I think I had a bit of a knack for it. And then in addition to that, I was just charismatic enough that you could kind of like, whatever, you know.
No, you can get in there.
You can get in there, right?
Totally.
So it was very helpful. No, and I think it's a wonderful, like, I coached for a number of years after I was out of this school. But it really is a game of letting go. Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think really good for life. Like, like it's really like
it's a philosophical.
I think so. It's one of those philosophical things because you get out on stage and you've got an idea with the ask for you've been given.
Yeah.
And everybody else on stage also has an idea.
Yeah.
You step up with your idea, or maybe you don't have an idea. Maybe nobody has an idea, and you step up and you have to say something. So you say something. And then somebody sees that, and that triggers something in them, and they step up and they say something to you. And now, like, everything you say is canon. So, like, now that they've said that, it's true.
Yeah.
And maybe they said something that wasn't along the idea that you, like, you pictured something.
Yeah.
I can see how this story goes.
Yeah.
Cool, I'm going to go this direction. Then they step in, and they're inspired by what you said. They say something, and that takes it in a new direction. You have to let go of the direction you were going and go in their direction.
Quickly.
But the thing is, now you got to say something. So you got to say, so it's really this, it's super collaborative. And you have to be willing to let go of your idea to give it to somebody else. And then follow them. And you're just always following each other. Everybody's always following each other. And the more that you work together, the more that you have, you know, you can get in sync, and you know the structure of a story. So you can kind of picture where they're going to go with it, but maybe they're going to take it in a different direction. It's just such a fun, it's a beautiful thing. That feels different than acting. It is acting, but it's different, and it's really enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable, and the audience is in it with you. Which is different than acting, where the acting, which is also a huge passion of mine, but you've got a thing, you're going to show it to them. And they're experiencing it with you. But it's planned. Whereas this is like, every joke, it's, in many ways, it feels like you're cheating a little bit.
Well, it's like jazz.
It's like jazz.
It's a jam session.
And they are, so when you say something clever that you just thought about, they're like, oh my God.
This person's a genius.
They're a genius. Or you say something funny and it just works. And half the time we as improvisers are as surprised as anybody else is in the audience. Because we're experiencing this, like we're seeing this develop, and sometimes you kind of let go in a way that sometimes you surprise yourself. And your co-improvisers absolutely surprise you. And so the audience is in on all of those jokes.
Interesting.
And so a lot of the times, I think if you were to record it, and this is why I don't love recorded improv very much. If you were to record it and to play it back,
it's not the same.
Written theater, written drama, written comedy is better. But the thing is, the people that were in that room with you were with you as it was being developed. And they knew the knife edge you were on. They knew the risk that you were taking, and it's just something special. So a show might not be as quality as it's different. It's not quality. It's just different.
It builds community.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's a shared experience.
And every inside joke the audience is in on. They're there because they were there from the beginning. Of its inception.
So after high school, did you decide to pursue improv as a career?
Oh, as a career? No, I've never thought about improv as a career.
Okay.
Because
what did you decide to do?
I don't even know how you do that as a career. No, it's just one of those things.
It's like Second City or something.
Well, and going back to radio, so.
Did you?
In high school, I always wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
But also, that seemed unreasonable.
Okay.
Like, it's tough. It's tough in Manitoba.
Sure.
It's tough anywhere. But in Manitoba, it's like, where do you, like, you gotta move for this? Like, am I gonna drop everything and move to one of the main hubs in Canada, or am I gonna try to get into the States somehow? I didn't see a path, really. Radio was always kind of an idea.
Okay.
I didn't jump right there, but it was like, that's something else that I could do that looks fun, that's artistic and and performative.
Okay.
So it was always an idea. I went to the UW for a year and took theater there. And then I kind of looked at it and thought, how am I going to, if I go forward and I get this fully, what am I going to do with that? How am I going to go about that?
Sure.
And I wanted to get married, so I did that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit more pragmatic, and it was like, I don't really see, I kind of wish I'd finished it, only because I see some other my friends that have done that.
Yeah.
You know, and they're great actors. I'd like to do more acting classes. I've done lots of productions.
Yeah.
Many productions. Most of them, you know, amateur community type things.
Okay.
But I'd love to just, you know, I just love like learning and like, you know, being coached.
Sure.
In that, so that'd be fun. But no, I wanted to get married, and I wanted to, you know, just didn't see what I would necessarily do with that degree. It was costing a lot of money.
What did you want to do? Was it like, the idea was, I don't necessarily want to move.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to move to pursue acting. I don't necessarily want to complete the theater degree because, practically speaking, if I'm going to be here in Manitoba, the job market for acting, etc., you know, you did have a different goal, a different dream. What was that?
The dream was always acting, and my number one dream was acting specifically on.
But you said that you wanted
sitcom.
to get married, and
so
that wasn't part of it.
Well, no, it was a big part of the dream. It was. Sorry, I see what you're getting at.
I was trying to set you up.
Yes, I did want to get married. But it was just kind of like, it was about putting things not on pause, but just, it was putting my career dream on pause, but not really on pause, because I was like, I'm going to go get married, so I did that. Very shortly thereafter, I got a job in radio. So it was like, okay, this is great. Like, this is a wonderful other thing to do.
How'd you get the job in radio? How'd that?
Well, it was because of, I'd have to ask my boss more specifically, but I think, so it was a bunch of acting things I had done. So I was coaching improv at the time at the SRSS. I was coaching my boss's daughter.
Okay.
So he came to see me as like an MC.
Okay.
MCing an improv show.
Yeah.
Knowing I was also a coach and improviser myself. So that kind of lines up with radio, kind of. Certainly the MC part of it and all that jazz.
Yeah.
And I was filming a short film that I was like a sketch comedy. I was part of a group that was filming a lot of sketch comedy at the time.
Okay.
So we're filming in our radio studio. We asked to use it because one of the guys that was in the sketch comedy troupe, his brother worked there.
Okay.
So it was like, hey, can we use your space?
Yeah.
So it was like kind of a few things that lined up on that front together.
You're in the community. You're doing performative stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets you a job in radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that kind of, so it wasn't like I, was I'm not stepping away from a dream. It's just doing a different kind of fun, also part of the dream. Adjacent. And my wife was going to university at the time, and so it was kind of like, well, you know what? I'll do this, and I'll continue to act. Like I was doing lots of local productions and sketch comedy and all that jazz, improv. So I was doing all of those things still, but still keeping that muscle working. And that's the cool thing about acting, I think. It's like even if you're not doing it as a job, you can still do it.
Yeah.
And you can do it until you are whatever age. In fact, there are very few people, like every community production wants more people in their 50s because it's hard to find people that are still acting at that age. So like the older you get, the easier it's going to be to find jobs. So
it's true.
Yeah, because it's a young person's game usually, and people think of it as like, I did that as a kid. That's fun.
I mean when I'm doing film work, I'm always looking to cast older people. Who are good.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to choose from of like, if you're looking for like a good actor from like age like 24 to like 34, you'll find someone,
Yeah. But people kind of give it up and they move on and they have kids and they do other stuff. So like, it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I'm always going to do it.
Yeah. I think also people, I would guess that at a certain point, like we all have this aspect of ourselves. But I think that if you don't, like, something that putting yourself out there and not being precious about stuff helps is you don't get super, super self-conscious.
Yeah.
I think at some point that overwhelms and suddenly you're sitting way back, you're looking at people wishing like, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
Like me with like improv.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like cowering more and more, being like, I wish I could be part of that group.
Yeah.
But I'm so self-conscious about, you know,
and
being...
Rightfully so. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
But radio helps with that a ton.
Yeah.
I do a show every single day.
Yeah.
And it goes out, and however many people are listening to it are listening to it.
Yeah.
It's not all amazing. It can't be. The goal is to have that baseline to get better and better. So when I have a bad day, nobody notices, and it's still a good day. And then when I have a great day, it's a great day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, it was really weird at first going into a gas station and hearing myself while I am talking to somebody who knows that's me. Or maybe they don't even, but I just feel weird. Now it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I might be like, oh, that wasn't the best break ever.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like central like mantra or message? What's your message to the world?
Oh, I don't have a main mantra that I really live by. I don't think.
But you have an engine that powers you. What is that?
I think if I had to come up with like, rules to live by isn't the right word either, but mantras, it would all come back down to the improv things that I've taken, which are kind of two main rules, but
what are they?
Life is too big. One of them is treat everybody like gold.
Okay.
Yes, in life, but in performance and in partnership, it's about making other people look good. And so, like, if everybody's making everybody look good, everybody looks good. Everybody looks amazing if everybody's setting everybody else up to hit the ball. You know, if everybody is trying their best to make everybody to set somebody else up to succeed, then we're all looking great.
Yeah.
And so that collaboration is very important.
Yeah.
It's always tough when you have lofty things like this because it also means that we all fail at these things. Like I like to think that that's my mantra or my thing, but anybody that knows me is like, well, yeah, but you don't have to do that, right? Like you're sometimes selfish and do that. So it's true, but you do your best.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main things I think of in improv is like if everybody's pumping each other into the place, everybody's looking to look awesome and it's going to be great. And then in life, I mean, that's obviously beneficial. Like if you're feeding into other people, I think that's more important than thinking about yourself. And then the other improv thing that is we already talked about is just being willing to let go. Always being willing to contribute, but always willing to let go. Is such an awesome thing to learn from improv. And I think you also learn that in other places. Like I think a lot of people that play sports will say the same thing, right? Like you always have to be willing to see what somebody else is doing and support them. Yeah. But at the same time, you're always there to contribute. Yeah. You're always there with an idea. Yeah. And then it's a fun collaborative process.
Yeah. I think about that with definitely with my kids. I think about that there's this balance between. I mean, sometimes I'm focused on what I'm doing, so I'm like, just leave me alone. I want to focus on this thing right now. Yeah. And then I look at them and I'm like, oh no, I missed it. Yeah. I missed the moment. I missed the thing. Now they're going away. I didn't have that moment to connect with them, and I want them to. I want to, and then sometimes I'm like, I want to hug them so close, and I want to be really close with them and stuff. But then also, I think just finding that balance, you want to find that happy place where you're embracing the moment and letting it go at the same time. It's like breathing. Yeah. We're like, yes, I'm appreciating where we are. We are in this moment together, but I'm also not holding on to it so tightly that I can't. That's part of the appreciation of the moment. Yeah. Is the letting it go. is the not controlling everything.
Totally, and I can totally see that, and I can see how this, like, that's something I've learned from radio, because, you know, you got to do a show every day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have, like, oh, this is a really good interview. I have this interview, that's really fun. Maybe I'm talking about this topic of discussion.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to, like, hold on to it, because it's like, tomorrow, I don't have anything planned for tomorrow yet. So maybe I'll just use this tomorrow, and I'll use this the day after.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's best to just go, no. I'm going to use everything today.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust that I'm going to find good stuff tomorrow too.
Yeah.
And then the day after that, I'm also going to find good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to hold on to everything because I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, because I trust that I'm good at my job.
Yeah.
I trust that I'm interested in stuff. I trust that other people are going to do cool things. You just have to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that is another thing that, like, a little bit about what you're saying, where it's like, you know, you almost want to hold on to it. Tomorrow's going to be here too. And tomorrow's also going to be great.
Yeah.
And there's going to be something there that isn't here today.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to, like, hold on to this so tight, because tomorrow's going to also be a thing.
Well, Kenton. No, it's always exciting to talk to you, to see what you're doing. I mean, I love seeing sort of the performance aspect and what you're doing with the performance part of your life. It's always great to hear you on the radio as well. Thanks for taking the time to stop by for a coffee.
Thank you.
Coffee and a chat. Cheers. Should we clink it? Cheers.
Oh, why not? Why not?
Cheers.
Cheers.